Listen to the voice of my God, my Elohim. Listen to the voice of my God. Yahuwah, to you I make me love. Listen to the voice of my God, listen to the voice of my God, my Elohim. Listen to the voice of my God, Yahuwah, to you I make me love. Lift up the light of your face, all Yahuwah, to you Yahuwah, I lift up my voice. I need the lights and the praise of your name, Yahuwah. You are my love, you are my love, Yahuwah. You are my love, you are my love. Listen to the voice of my God, my Lord. Listen to the voice of my God, my Lord. Listen to the voice of my God, Yahuwah. To you I make me love. Lift up the light of your face and no night, Yahuwah. You Yahuwah, I lift up my voice. I breathe the light and the praise of your name, Yahuwah. You are my life, you are my life, Yahuwah. You are my life, you are my life, Yahuwah. You are my life, you are my life, Yahuwah. You are my life.
Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah our Elohim, Yahuwah is one. And you shall love Yahuwah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And the second one is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Glad you're all here. A little late start today. Sorry about that. Been a very busy week. Just starting to catch up and getting ready to rest. So it was a rush to get here and get started, but here we are. Last week we were during the Zoom at noon meeting. We were talking about who the possible author of Yahukanon is or was, and I thought it was interesting enough to do some studying on that a little bit this week. And I came up with some amazing things about this. And one of those is rather obvious, that a lot of it's brainwashing, programming into the masses by uninformed teachers, principalities of darkness, controllers, these type of people. And a lot of it is just mistakes, man-made mistakes through smart people who call themselves scholars and theologians, doctor of theologian, things like that. Large misunderstanding on their part. And so they write their theories or the ideologies down, and people follow after them, and they have to read these things. And then so they begin to parrot their preceding scholars, and it just becomes a mess after a while. And then people accept it as truth, and they continue to teach it and teach it and teach it and pass it on to further down the line. So that's a lot of the obvious reasons that things get passed to us that aren't truth. But amazingly, unless these epistles or letters or books we have in the scripture of truth here have some type of authorship suggesting who wrote it within the letter or the book, then we're fairly clueless about who the original author was. And so that's a big problem too. Matter of fact, most of the books, or at least a lot of them, its authors are unknown. Okay, so what we're going to talk about here then is how in the world did Christendom come up to the conclusion and went ahead and awarded the writings of John, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, and Revelations to John, the son of Zebedeeh. And so this is something we got to figure this out on how did this happen, and if in fact it's true or not true. Okay, so one of the big things we got to realize here is that there is nothing really that leads in any of those 5 books that hints to us who wrote them, other than Revelations does mention Yahukanon. So Yahukanon is mentioned as the author. The only other clue is it's claimed by the pupil whom Yahusha loved. And so if we can kind of figure out who that is, it will help. The other thing is that we got to realize there's only 4 Yahukanons, if you will, or Johns, that could possibly be the author of these. And so it's not a real long list. Anything outside of those 4 are a long shot. I mean, way long shot. And so we can narrow it down really to several, just 2 people really. But the short list is 4, and the short list is 2. And so I think out of this list of possibilities, we should be able to apply common sense and a little bit of delicate reading and come up with an answer of who wrote these writings. There's plenty of proof that whoever wrote these 5 books is the same author. And the reason we know that, or we can at least suggest that with a lot of confidence, is that you can see the pattern or the mindset in each letter it's got to be coming from the same mind. It's pretty obvious, really, because he uses a lot of the same phrases. He talks about the same things. He uses a lot of the same pet idioms, if you will, or figures of speech, things like that. And it's pretty apparent throughout the books. So I don't know. You know, there's people out there suggesting that they're all written by different Johns, but I don't think so. After further research this week and past research and finding some of my notes from years gone by, I don't see how we can say that it's any of these are a different author. It's all the same author. The style of writing, the pet verbiage, you know, the way he talks about things is very common throughout all 5 books. Okay, and so these different Johns are mentioned. So one thing that I did was I isolated the Johns when they were mentioned, and I looked at them and said, is this John the author, or is this John being written about by another person, by the author? And once I started looking at it that way, it was pretty easy to whittle it down and see what was going on. So there is mention of the 4 Johns, and like I said, by reading it very carefully and slowly and deliberately, it wasn't too hard to figure out whether the author was talking about another person named John or if the author was talking about himself. And that helped a lot with me as far as I'm concerned, figuring out who wrote these. Some people, I think a lot of the confusion here, most of it, other than straight up fraudulent lies, you know, people trying to deliberately mislead with their interpretation or their ideology, as the problem is misunderstanding of the Last Supper. The Last Supper spoken about pretty good in Luke, Matthew, and Mark. John hits on it, but not as much as depth as the other 3. But what I'm saying here is, through these 4 examples of the Last Supper, which have, you know, Passover and unleavened bread, all this happens in the week of Passover. Okay, and the misunderstanding of that being represented by only 12 people plus Yahusha, 13 people, I think is one of the biggest stumbling blocks that causes people not to understand who the author is. Also, there's a little portrait running around out there most of us are familiar with. It's called The Last Supper. It's titled The Last Supper, and it was painted by Leonardo da Vinci. And most of us have seen that. It has a weak-looking pupil leaning on Yahusha's chest with 11 others on each side. And so this portrait then depicts 13 people at the Last Supper, and that's all there is there. So it leaves us scratching our heads when we don't get a name. There's not really a name that for the pupil that leaned on Yahusha's bosom and asked who the betrayer was. But we do get that it's the pupil whom Yahusha loved. So then we scratch our heads and say, oh, wait a minute now, that makes 13 pupils in the Messiah. So that's 14, but there's only 13. What's going on? Is Yahukanon, the son of thunder, missing? He wasn't there. You know what's going on. And so this portrait and the misunderstanding of the Last Supper and who and what was going on, I think lends to the problem of awarding these writings to the wrong author, as Christendom does. I mean, they've done it so long now that it's become part of their doctrine. And so they use it to explain. The way they explain it is that Yahukanon, one of the sons of thunder, his brother being Yakub or James, who was always with Peter. Those were the three tight group that was always most of the time with Yahusha, even when the others weren't. And so they have Yahukanon, one of the sons of thunder here, as beginning out, like in John, the book of John, in the beginning, and then he speaks a lot of truth. Okay, so then he goes into speaking truth, a lot about truth, and then into more into love, and especially John 1, 2, and 3. And we know Revelations is prophetic predictions given to him by Yahushua on the island Patmos. So he's just dictating on that one. Okay, so they take this and they assume that he was a young man into truth and more of a zealot, or someone who was like really hard on people that weren't obeying. And he went to go around, punch everybody in the nose and beat them up, call fire down from the heaven on them and destroy them and all this other stuff. And so, but then over time, as he understood scripture and through the teachings of Yahusha, he learned to be learned that love was the goal. So he became meek and mild and loving as he aged, and then actually gradually got older and older and older and died somewhere up in Ephesus in the 90s as a broken old man. Okay, so they say all this in order to help make their doctrine more sound. Okay, but what they're really seeing there is not a gradual change in this man, but what they're seeing is a totally different man, the description of a totally different man. There's nothing in scriptures or anything else they have that can prove that Yahukanon, the son of thunder, went to Ephesus and died at 93 years old as an old broken down man. Okay, it's tradition. It's all tradition, Christian tradition. So this gradual change is not really a gradual change. This is just the way that Yahukanon, the author, was. Okay, he started talking about truth. Truth is the vehicle that takes us to love. Once we ride truth, we're going to eventually find love, and love is Yahuwah. All right. And so this is what this is portraying more than anything else. He speaks a lot about truth and love. That's his main theme in all these letters is truth and love, and we'll see that. Okay, it passes on even down to John 1, 2, and 3. leaving us no doubt that's the same author. He talks about truth and love, truth and love, truth and love. That's all he talks about. All right. All right. So why is this important? Well, it is important to understand truth, because if we follow a made-up ideology of people that think they know what Scripture's saying, but do not, so they mix stuff up and try to fill in gaps on their own, and then it starts leading people astray. And then we know how one thing goes. One untruth leads to more untruth, and then that leads to more untruth, and that leads to more untruth. Before you know it, 90% of their doctrine's based on lies and not truth. So just a small lie goes like a snowball effect going downhill. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it grows and grows and it grows. Before you know it, they're totally out of whack. Not even close to the truth anymore. So yes, it's important to know this. That's what our study is going to be about this evening. So let me say hi to a few people and then we'll get started. Peggy Russell, glad you're here, sister. Raul, glad you're here. Yami, glad you're here. Ronald Sterenberg, glad you're here. Sandra, glad you're here. Valerie, glad you're here. Laderain, glad you're here. Kate Connell, glad you're here. Kinsley, glad you're here. Chad, glad you're here. Lou White, glad you're here, brother. Phyllis White, glad you're here. Tad Boyd, glad to see you, brother. Sabbath again. Matthew 5, 17, 18, glad to see you. Glad you're here. Bruce, glad to see you, brother. Glad you're here. One Mountain and Cat 1, glad you're here. Yummy Japan Natsurim, glad you're here. Diane E. Branch, wow, glad to see you, sister. Missing you. Okay. Got a few people trickling in. We're going to go ahead and get into it. Okay, so like I said, I think the two biggest stumbling blocks is the Last Supper and that portrait of Leonardo da Vinci. So what I'm proposing here, at least what I'm understanding, now I'm going to admit there are some verses that we're going to go into that's going to leave us scratching our head and saying, wow, that sounds like there was only 12 people there. But there's going to be more weighing over into the more category that's suggesting there was more than just those 12 at that supper, Last Supper. And I think this is going to be kind of important, not only to debunk Leonardo da Vinci's portrait of what was going on in the upper chamber, the upper level of this house during the Last Supper, during Passover week, but also to help us see the picture a little bit more clear of what was happening here. Now, keep in mind, Yahusha had large throngs and crowds following him everywhere he went. Soon as they saw him, they would come to him because they wanted to be healed. The word had gotten out that he could heal and even raise the dead. And so soon people knew he was around, they were flocking to him. Okay. Outside of those large throngs and crowds, he had about 70 followers or pupils, main hardcore pupils that were sticking with him and was listening to his teachings. Out of those 70 pupils, he handpicked 12. Okay. And that's what the circus calls the apostles. All right. So he picked those 12 main pupils or inner circle workers, if you will. And then out of those 12, there was 3 that got to see a whole lot more than anyone else. They got to see him transfigure. He became the body of light. They saw Elijah and Moses. They saw a lot of things that the other ones didn't have a chance to see. These three main characters. And who were they? Kepha, the first one he called when he began his ministry, if you will. And then along with his brother, Andrew, doesn't mention a whole lot about him, though. And then the next two were that he chose or called, I say. He didn't separate them till later on into the 12. But the next two were also brothers. And that was Yahukanon and Yakub, the sons of thunder. Okay. Later on, he picks out of the 70, 12. Okay. And we all know them, who they are. Okay. So that's set up the stage, and we're seeing the big picture right there. Okay. So now let's go immediately into the Last Supper here and look at those 4 accounts. And so we can get a bird's eye view of the misunderstanding that's leading to this awarding the authorship to Yahukanon, the son of thunder, or Yakub's brother. All right, so let's look at Luke. Luke 5. I don't know what I got. Hang on a second. No, I don't know what I got down there. Anyway, Acts 5. Luke 5. Luke 5. Okay. And it came to be while the crowd was wait a minute. That's not where I want to be. I thought something was wrong with that. Okay, it's Luke 22. So let's go to Luke 22. I want to take a look at this Last Supper first. Okay, so Luke 22, 7 through 39 is what it is. And the time of unleavened bread approached when the Passover had to be slaughtered. All right. Now, keep in mind here that the Pesach, or unleavened bread, or Passover, is referring to the entire week of Passover. Okay, and it's actually more than a week if you include the Last Supper, preparation day, 7 days of unleavened bread, and then Bikurim. Okay, so that would be 8, 9, 10 days. But we'll just say a week of Passover. Okay, and so keep in mind here, then, when somebody says Passover, they can be referring to that entire week or those entire 10 days. Okay, they're not just referring to that one day of Passover. So you got to remember that, because if you don't, it's going to get squirrely here. Like I say, some of this will have a scratch in our head, but there is an explanation for it if we can only read it slow enough to see it. And the time of unleavened bread approached when the Passover had to be slaughtered, which would have been prep day, the day before the Shabbat. And he sent Kepha and Yahukanon, saying, "Go and prepare the Passover for us to eat." Okay, so we don't know who this Yahukanon is. So this could be one of the sons of thunder, or this could be Eleazar. He went by Yahukanon as well. Eleazar or Lazarus. Okay, so we don't really know. It just says Yahukanon. So here we're going to assume that this possibly is Yakub's brother. Okay, all right. And so it says, and go and prepare the Passover for us to eat. Okay, so we know, the Nazarene know that Yahusha did not eat the Passover meal, okay, in this particular year, because Yahusha was the Passover. And by the time they ate the Passover meal this year, Yahusha was in the tomb. Okay? So why is it saying Passover? See, this is where Christendom gets mixed up. Go and prepare the Passover for us to eat. That's because these gentlemen here, these fishermen from Galilee area and Yahusha, all grew up in the northern kingdom, up around the Galilee, okay? And up there, they observed a special observance each year prior to Preparation Day, which was called the Last Supper in English. I forgot what it's called in Hebrew. Look it up if it's important to you. Okay, and that was an observance for the firstborn of Israel. And what it was a memorable memorial that reminded them that not all the firstborn died that evening in Egypt. Okay, the firstborn of Yisrael did not die. They were protected by the blood of the Lamb. And this is why they ate the Last Supper. It was called the Last Supper because it was the last supper they would eat prior to Passover meal. So they ate this Last Supper, and then they would fast for 24 hours, and the next thing they would eat would be the Passover meal. But they just called it Passover or Pesach. It was included in the week of unleavened bread, or the week of Passover, if you will, which was actually 10 days. That's all this was. Because it can't be anything else. If you're not aware of what I'm saying, just look at it in common sense. It can't be the Passover meal itself because Yahusha was in the tomb this particular year. So he couldn't have been sitting there eating the Passover meal with 12 pupils. That's common sense. Just accept that. Okay, and they said to him, where do you wish us to prepare? And he said to them, see, as you enter into the city, a man shall meet you carrying a jug of water. Follow him into the house he enters. And you shall say to the master of the house, the teacher says to you, where is the guest room where I might eat the Passover with my Talmudim? Okay, here again, it's not talking about Passover meal that they ate as soon as it became dark on the Shabbat, the first day of unleavened bread. That's when they ate the Passover meal. Yahusha was dead and in his tomb, okay, at that particular point. So he couldn't have been sitting there talking to them, telling them to prepare the meal or even eating this meal, if you see where I'm coming from. And he shall show you a large furnished upper room. Prepare it there. And going, they found it as he had said to them, and they prepared the Passover. Not the Passover meal, but the last, what they know, what people know is the Last Supper. Okay? They just call it the Passover in here. Don't let that confuse you. And when the hour had come, he sat down and the 12 emissaries with him. So these 12 are the ones that he whittled out of the 70. Okay. And they're what the Christian dome calls apostles. All right. With him. And he said to them, with desire, I have desired to eat this Passover with you before my suffering. So this Passover with you before my suffering, it would be the Last Supper, not really the Passover meal itself. For I say to you, I shall certainly not eat of it again until it is concluded in the reign of Elohim. And taking the cup, giving thanks, he said, take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of the fruit of the vine until the reign of Yahuwah, comes. So here, he's either did not drink the wine. He just, when he says here, look, take this and divide it among yourselves. For I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of the fruit of the vine until the reign of Yahuwah, means he did not drink any wine at the Last Supper. He had a cup of wine as everybody else did. He took his and said, here, divvy this out among yourselves and y'all go ahead and drink this. I'm not going to drink it. That's what he's saying here, paraphrasing, of course. And taking bread, giving thanks, he broke it and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Likewise, the cup also, after supper, saying, see, now this is after supper. So he gave him his drink and told him to share it among themselves. He wasn't going to drink any wine. Then they ate. And then after supper, he broke bread. And then he got another cup of wine. And he said, this cup is the renewed covenant in my blood, which is shed for you. So this is the breaking of the bread and the cup of wine that they passed around after supper, symbolizing the renewed covenant being his blood and his body. You see that? That came after he gave them his glass of wine and said, I'm not going to drink any wine at this supper. I'm not going to drink by the fruit of the vine anymore until the reign of Yahuwah comes. See that? That's two separate cups of wine. So we got to understand all this, because it's going to open up, turn on some lights as we study this and start understanding what we're reading. It should be bringing us closer in and understand that, hey, wait a minute, I never saw that before. Sucking you in. Listen up. We have to get rid of all the programming, all of it, in order to bring in the new wine. You got to dump all the old wine out. We can't leave some old wine in there and then mix it, because you're not going to get it. You got to dump it. That's why this is important for you to get this. But see, the hand of him delivering me up is with me on the table. For indeed the son of Adam goes as it has been decreed. But woe to that man by whom he is delivered up. And they began to ask among themselves, which of them it could be who was about to do this. And there also took place a dispute among them as to which of them seemed to be greater. Now, this thing about them disputing who would be greater, we read about this throughout the Netzarim writings. And so this is still speaking of the 12. But take note here that there is nothing indicating how many people were at this Last Supper. It's only talking about Yahusha and the 12 so far. Okay? The apostles are being named. They're eating the Last Supper before he's going to be arrested the previous evening. The evening coming. And, oh, wait a minute. He's arrested that night. And that same evening after they go up to the Mount of Olives. Okay, but there's no indication of how many were at this Last Supper yet. But this disputing among them, and especially they were arguing over which of them seemed to be greater. They do that a lot. This was most of the time, okay, that we read about this, and we read about it a lot, not a lot, but more than once, that it was probably incited by Yahukanon, the son of thunder, and his brother Yakub, the son of thunder. Those two brothers were very quarrelsome. They were very abrasive. They were ambitious. They were zealous. They had a fiery temper. They were selfish. They were lacking in love. And this will all come apparent to you as we read. But most of the time, this arguing and disputing over rank and file and who was the greater usually was started by these two brothers, with Yahusha nicknamed the Sons of Thunder. So just keep that in mind as we read on through here. You'll see what I'm talking about. And he said to them, now can you imagine this? They're sitting there arguing over who's the greater, who's the better of them all, who's the toughest, who's the baddest, who's the smartest, who's the most loyal, who knows more about the teachings of the master, whatever. They're just arguing, man, about who's the greatest. Can you imagine them doing that? Do they not seem like normal, ordinary men to you doing that? You better believe they were. They were fishermen. They were a rough crowd to begin with. Okay? They were rough around the edges to begin with. These weren't sissies. These were rough, callous men, hardworking men. And he said to them, the sovereigns of the nations rule over them, and those who control them are called workers of good. But not so with you. But let him who is greatest among you be as the youngest, and the leader as one who serves. For who is greater, the one who sits at the table or the one who serves? It is not the one who sits at the table. Is it not the one who sits at the table? But I am in your midst as the one who serves. But you are those who have remained with me in my trials. And I covenant for you as my Father covenant for me, a reign, to eat and drink at my table, in my reign, and to sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Yisrael. And the master said, Shimon, Shimon, see, Satan has asked for you to sift as wheat. Wow. Satan asked to get a hold of Peter. He wanted Peter's butt. Isn't that amazing? He got him too. He did get him, but not permanently. But I have prayed for you that your belief should not fail. And when you have turned, strengthen your brothers. And he said to him, Master, I am prepared to go with you both to prison and to death. And he said, I said to you, Kepha, the rooster shall not crow at all today until you have denied 3 times that you know me. And he said to them, when I sent you without purse and bag and sandals, did you lack any? And they said, none at all. And he said to them, but now let him who has a purse take it, likewise also a bag. And let him who has no sword sell his garment and buy one. For I say to you that what has been written has yet to be accomplished in me. And he was reckoned with lawless ones. For that which refers to me has an end too. Isn't that amazing? Okay, so isn't that wild? He told them to go buy a sword and get ready to fight. And we're going to see that they're taking this literal. He's speaking spiritual, but they're not picking up what Yahusha's laying down, man. They're taking this literal. We'll see the mistake of taking what Yahusha's spiritual message is literal. For what that which refers to me has an end too. We're going to come right back to that. That's important. And they said, Master, look, here are 2 swords. But he said to them, that is enough. So why did he say that to them after he just told them to go buy swords, sell their clothes and everything? And they found 2. And he says, that's enough. Because he's disgusted with them because they're taking his spiritual message literal. And he can't stand it anymore. He's like, you fleshly minded people, that's enough. I'm not even going to explain that to you. See, he's fed up, man. He can't take it no more. So he was speaking spiritually, but they took it literally, and he was filled up to here with that garbage. He was done with that. And coming out, he went to the Mount of Olives according to usage. According to usage, that means he used the Mount of Olives a lot for whatever reason. He needed to use it. And his Talmudim also followed him. And coming to the place, he said to them, pray that you do not enter into trial. Okay, so if you read from 41 on down to 46, you'll get to hear the human nature, the dual nature, the human side of Yahusha talking. Yahuwah permitted the fleshly body, the lamb, to speak and act just like we do, although he had full control. So you get to hear the flesh speak if you read from 41 to 46 on your own here. But I want to get back over here to where it says, for that which refers to me, is Yahusha speaking, has an end too. So this is very interesting, is it not? Because what this is telling us is there's an end to the role of Yahusha, this deliverer. After sin and evilness has been judged, okay, there will be no need for deliverer any longer. So there'll be end of Yahusha as far as in the role of the deliverer. His role as in Melchizedek, the high priest, will not end. Okay, but his role as the son, the sonship role, will have an ending. And this is what he's talking about. For that which refers to me has an end too. So to confirm that, go to 1 Corinthians 15:28. 1 Corinthians 15:28 says, and when all are made subject to him, then the Son himself shall also be subject to him who put all under him, in order that Yahuwah be all in all. The sonship, the role of the sonship will end. There's no reason for Yahuwah to play that role any longer. It'll be fulfilled, be done, finished. Okay? All right. So that's, you can see here, there's no indicating of how many people were at the Last Supper. Okay, it just sounds like there were 12. So if this is true, then that would exclude Eleazar. He wouldn't be the pupil whom Yahusha loved. You would either have to say he's not there as far as this context goes, or you would have to say that Yahukanon, the son of one of the sons of thunder, is the pupil whom Yahusha loved. You would have to conclude that, come up with that understanding, which is exactly what the churches did. That's exactly what they did. They concluded that, okay, so the people whom Yahusha loved has to be Yahukanon, one of the sons of thunder. Zebediah, son of Zebediah. Okay, so let's go ahead now and look at another example of this, which would be back here in Matthew. So let's go into Matthew, the Last Supper here. And this is a little bit repetitive, but there's going to be very important little hints throughout these four examples that's going to lead us into truth. So if truth is important to you, open up your eyes and ears and listen up. This is extremely important. You got to dump the old wine, man. You got to get every ounce, every drop of it out. You need a new wine skin. That's what you really need, but you ain't going to get that until Yahusha returns. All right. So let's look at the example we have in Matthew 26, 17 through 30. And prior to unleavened bread, the Talmudim came to Yahusha, saying to him, where do you wish us to prepare for you to eat the Passover? So here we're hearing this word Passover again, and prior to unleavened bread, which means prior to the Shabbat. The first day of unleavened bread is the Shabbat, right? Prior to that, prepare you to eat the Passover. And this is the year he dies, so we know he ain't eating no Passover meal. So this is talking about the Last Supper. They're just calling it Passover. That's just the way they spoke up around the Galilee area. There was a dialect and a different way of speaking. It's kind of like maybe the Spanish people from Spain coming down talking to Spanish people from Mexico. Is a big difference in how they talk. They say words differently. There's a different dialect too. They have to really be careful on how they understand. They understand what each other is saying. Okay. So anyway, it's sort of like that. I'm just using that for an example. Don't get your feathers up, roughed up. It's just an example I'm using. Okay, so the Talmudim came to Yahushua saying, will you wish us to prepare for you to eat the Passover? And he said, go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am to observe the Passover at your house with my Talmudim. Okay, and this, like I said, is talking about the Last Supper. And the Talmudim did as Yahushua had ordered them and prepared the Passover. And when evening came, he sat down with the 12. And while they were eating, he said, truly I say to you, one of you should deliver me up. Now this here sounds like there's only 12 Only 12 people with Yahushua, making 13. Just like Leonardo da Vinci's portrait portrays, right? It does sound like that. Because now Luke 22 didn't sound like that. Then we actually had no indication of how many were really there. It said 12 emissaries, but it didn't really, confine them to 12 as Matthew here seems to be doing. And when evening came, he sat down with the 12. See what I'm saying? It's almost like they're isolating the 12 here. And while they were eating, he said, truly I come to you, one shall deliver me up. And they were deeply grieved and began to say to him, each of them, Master, is it I? So in order, they were saying, is it me? Is it me? Is it me? In order, And he answering said, he who has dipped his hand with me in the dish, he shall deliver me up. Indeed, the son of Adam goes as it has been written concerning him, but woe to that man by whom the son of Adam is delivered up. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. Okay, so, this is all jiving pretty well so far with Luke. And Yehuda, who delivered him up, answering said, Rabbi, is it I? And he said to him, you have said it. You just read it yourself out, right? As they were eating, Yahushua took bread and having blessed, broke. And this is saying as they were eating. Luke said after they were finished eating. See, there's different, there's little things that are here and there and not over here or not over there, And so that's why you have to read very carefully. Why is there a difference here in what was going on? So here it's saying that he dipped in the bread with the person that delivered him up, and the other one was who he dipped the bread and handed it to. See what I'm saying? So there's a little bit of variation and play on the witnessing here, but nothing to get real excited about. Okay, remember these people may have been sitting clear across the room. One may have been sitting next to him or two down, and the other may have been sitting on the very end and didn't quite see it, but just thought that that's what happened. That's what they saw. I've done that myself. I'm sure you have too. So this is not something to get all excited about or say, oh, the scriptures is contrary or contradicting itself. Okay, so and they said, and they were eating. Yahushua took bread and having blessed, broke, and gave it to the Talmudim, said, take, eat, this is my body. And taking the cup and giving thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink from it, all of you, for this is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many for the forgiveness of sins. But I say to you, I shall certainly not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on till that yom when I drink it anew with you in the reign of Yahuwah. So here Yahushua is expressing that he knows he's going to die very soon. He knows it. Okay. It's a little bit out of context of what we just read, but not enough to get too excited about. Okay. He says they were eating, as they were eating, maybe they were just finishing up. You know, Luke said after they were done eating, he'd passed the cup and the bread. This is saying as they were eating. So maybe they were just finishing up. Maybe they were taking their last bites and he did it. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? Like I said, some were sitting near him. Others were at the end. Some visions were blocked by somebody sitting next to him. The hand's quicker than the eye. It's not that big of a deal. Okay. Taking the cup and giving thanks, he gave it to them, telling them to drink and drink it. But he's saying he ain't going to drink it. So here, this is agreeing with Luke that he didn't drink. Yahushua did not drink. Some people say he drank that night, but when I'm reading, he did not. Okay, and having sung a song, they went out to the Mount of Olives. So that was a tradition when they were done eating the Last Supper, that they would sing a song of praise to Yahuwah. Okay, and so that's what they did. Like I said, the Yehudim didn't do this. They didn't celebrate the Last Supper. Only the northern tribes up around the Galilee area observed the Last Supper in remembrance of that. Wasn't all the firstborn did not die at Egypt that evening. The firstborn of Israel did not die, and that's what they were celebrating every year. The Yehudim did not do that. They didn't have that. They didn't have that tradition. So that's let me see. Yeah, that's about where I'm going to leave off right there on Matthew. Now let's go take a look at Mark's account of this. And that would be in 14, Mark 14. So here, so far, in Luke, there's no indication of if there was anybody there or not other than the 12 emissaries in Yahushua. In Matthew, it almost seems to lead us, at least it leads us to believe or assume that there was only 12 plus Yahushua. So now we're going to go, there's 4 accounts. So let's go to Mark now. So Mark 14, 12 to 26. Okay, and on the preceding yom, now this one's a little tricky. This is a head scratcher. On the preceding yom of unleavened bread, when they were slaughtering the Passover lamb, his Talmudim said to him, where do you wish us to go and prepare for you to eat the Passover? So this sounds like, when you first read this, it sounds like, and on the preceding yom of unleavened bread, it's talking about Passover day, preparation day, right? That's what it sounds like, but it's not. But it really sounds like for you to eat the Passover, okay? So what was this preceding yom means before preparation day, not yom of unleavened bread. Okay, I know that's what it's saying, but it's not what it's meaning. It's meaning the day before preparation day, uh, when they were slaughtering the Passover lamb. See that? So he's saying the preceding day of unleavened bread is 2 days away. Okay, and slaughtering for the when they were slaughtering for the Passover lamb, his Talmud had said to him, "Where do you want us to go?" Okay, I know it sounds weird. We're going to read on, and you find out what I'm talking about here. The word, and he sent out 2 of his Talmudim and said to them, "Go into the city, and there's a man bearing a jug of water shall meet you. Follow him. And wherever he enters, say to the master of the house, the teacher says, where is the guest room in which I am to eat the Passover with my Talmudim? And he shall show you a large upper room, furnished, ready. Prepare for us there." And his Talmudim went out and came into the city and found it as he said to them. And they prepared the Passover. The dusk having come, he came with the 12. So see, it says the dusk has come. It's getting ready to go into the evening and start on the next day, which is going to be preparation day. Okay. See, they eat the meal on preparation day, the Last Supper. They eat the Passover meal in the evening on the Shabbat, the first day of unleavened bread. You seeing it now? That's why he's talking like that. And as they sat and ate, Yahusha said, so this would be preparation day now because it's evening. They're eating the Last Supper. The Galileans are. These are all Galileans. I think maybe one of them wasn't. The rest of them were. One of you who is eating with me shall deliver me up. And they began to be grieved and to say to him one by one, is it I? And another, is it I? And he answering said to them, it is one of the 12. So now he's saying it's one of the 12. Listen to that. Is it I? And another, is it I? And he said, answering, said to them, it is one of the 12 who is dipping with me in the dish. One of the 12? Who's he talking to? He must be talking to someone outside of the 12. Must have been asking him, is it I? Is it I? Some others that were there outside of the 12. Has to be. Because then he says, answering to them, he said, it is one of the 12 who's dipping with me. No, it's not any of you. It's one of these 12 that I chose. You see that? That's right there now is indicating strongly suggesting that there's more than just the 12 Talmudim in that room eating the Last Supper with them. You see that? So this verse here, verse 19, implies more than that there were more than 12 people in there eating this Last Supper, no matter how you slice the pie. Read it yourself very slowly if you disagree. It is I. And another said, is it I? Is it I? And he answered and said, it's one of the 12 who was dipping with me in the dish. So he's talking to somebody outside of the 12. It don't make any sense for him if it was the one of the 12 said, is it I? And this one says it I, and this one says I, for him to say, it's one of the 12. Well, they would know it was one of the 12. If it was just them in that room and them saying it, they would know it. Why would he have to tell them, no, it's one of the 12? Matter of fact, it's the one that's got his hand in the dish, dipping his bread with me right now. His hand's in the dish with mine, which would have been Judas. You see that? Yeah, it's pretty friggin' clear, isn't it? Had to be more than the 12 plus the Mashiach in this room eating the Last Supper, according to Mark here. The son of Adam is indeed going as it has been written of him. But woe to that man by whom the son of Adam is delivered up. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born. And as they were eating, Yahusha took bread, having blessed, broke it, gave it to them, and said, "Take, eat, this is my body." And taking the cup, giving thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. And taking the cup, giving thanks, he gave it to them, and they drank it. And he said to them, "This is my blood, that of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many. Truly I say to you, I shall certainly no more drink of the fruit of the vine till that yom when I drink it anew in the reign of Yahuwah." And having sung a song, they went out to the Mount of Olives, which was the tradition to celebrate the Last Supper, the memorial of the firstborn that did not die in Egypt of Yisrael. And after they completed their traditional Last Supper dinner, they sang a song and they went out to the Mount of Olives. At this point, it was preparation day now. Okay. And so he would have got up there close to midnight. "All of you shall stumble in me this night. For it has been written, I shall strike the sheep, and the sheep shall be scattered. But after I am raised, I shall go before you to Galilee." Two points here. Okay. It's written, I shall strike the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered, means that none of the 12 were at his execution. They scattered and hid. It's prophecy that they were going to do that, and that's exactly what they did, which means the pupil whom Yahushua loved, who was standing at his feet at the execution with his mother and 3 other Marys, could not have been Yahukanon, son of thunder. Couldn't have been. They all scattered. It's written. It's prophesied by Yahuwah to happen. And it says right up above there, all, A-L-L, all means all. "All of you shall stumble in me this night." All of them, all the 12. "For it has been written." So it wasn't just Judas. It was all of them. He said, all of them's going to stumble in me this night. That means they're going to fall away. That means they're going to be cowardly. They're going to scatter and run and hide like a bunch of scared little sheep because they're scared. "All of you shall stumble, for it has been written." If it has been written, and Yahushua said, that means Yahuwah said it, and it's been written, can it be changed? No, absolutely not. You can pray all you want. You are not going to change what has been written. You can change what has not been written, but if it's written down, it's solid, man. You can't get it to change no matter how much praying you do. No, you can't pray it away. There's just no way, man. It's been written. "I shall strike the shepherd," which is Yahusha, "and the sheep, which are the 12, shall be scattered." So there was absolutely none of the 12 pupils that he chose were at the execution. They were all hiding. The only one who was there was the pupil whom Yahushua loved. So he must not have been of the 12, but yet we know, and we're going to find out. If you don't know, we're going to find out here in a minute, that he was not one of the 12 chosen. He was the other pupil. He was another pupil. He was the pupil whom Yahushua loved. He wasn't of the 12. And we know that he was present at the Last Supper because she leaned on Yahushua's chest and asked him who the betrayer was. And according to Mark, 19 here, there was more people at the Last Supper than just the 12 plus Yahusha. That's how they're getting this Yahukanon mixed up. They're only seeing that there was 12 plus Yahusha, 13 here. But it wasn't. There was a pupil whom Yahusha loved was sitting right next to him. There were others other than them as well. It is I? And another said, is it I? And he answered them, no, it's one of the 12. It's the one who's dipping with me in the dish right now. Who's he talking to? He couldn't have been talking to the 12. Would be no reason for him to say that. And we know the people whom Yahushua loved was at the Last Supper leaning on his bosom and asked him who the betrayer was. Yeah, there were more people. Leonardo da Vinci is wrong in his painting. Christendom in their ideology is wrong. The people whom Yahushua loved is not Yahukanon, the son of thunder, the brother of Yakub, the other son of thunder. It was Lazarus, Alazar, who changed his name to Yahukanon and went by Yahukanon because he was an Incognito, because they were out to kill him. Okay, so this is opening up a can of worms, isn't it? This is something we're not used to hearing, isn't it? But yet we're reading it straight out of scriptures. We're not going off a tradition, a Christian tradition here. We're reading straight out of scripture. All right, so there's your third account. So now up to this point, we have Luke, which is not indicating either way if there was any more than just the 12 plus Yahusha there. We read Matthew, which seems to be leaning, or at least suggesting that it was only 12 and Yahusha, and that was it. And now we have Mark, which is busting this thing wide open and saying that there was more than just the 12 there. There was others who were interested in who the betrayer was, speaking to Yahusha. Could have been the girls. Could have been girls. Could have been his mother. Could have been Mary Magdalene. It could have been Alazar's sisters, Martha or Mary. Could have been his uncle and aunt. Could have been some other friends. Could have been his half-brothers. Maybe his half-brothers, Yehuda and Yakub, his half-brothers were there. Who knows? Maybe some of his sisters were there. It doesn't say, but it definitely suggests, to me, highly suggesting that there were others there. And they were in this conversation of who the betrayer was. In Mark 14, 19. Read it yourself. Okay, there's one more occurrence. So listen, we can't leave it out because we might learn something else. So remember, scripture mentions another pupil or an other pupil. It doesn't give his name, but it says another pupil. It does say that, and we're going to get into it. So let's look at the last occurrence here that we have about the Last Supper. And that would be, believe it or not, in Yahukanon 13. So Yahukanon 13, 1 through 26. Is very interesting because it really doesn't give us a lot of information. But the information it does give us is very important, vital to this equation. So let's look at it. 1 through 26, 13, John. And before the festival of the Passover, so now we're getting a little bit clearer direction here now. Okay, not so hard to understand. And before the festival of the Passover, Yahushua, knowing that his hour had come, that he should move out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, He loved them to the end. So we can understand this just a little bit more now. Before the festival of the Passover. So before preparation day, or you could even see before the high Shabbat, the high one, okay, which is mentioned in Scripture once. It does mention the high one, which is a high Shabbat. That's why we call them high Shabbats. It does say that. So this is a little bit more clear. We don't have to say, they're saying Passover and the day before unleavened bread. I don't know what's going on. I'm mixed up. Okay, so this clears it up just a little bit, confirms what we've been saying after all. And supper taking place. Bam. There's one of the key phrases here. And supper taking place. There you go. The Last Supper, man. It's not calling it the Passover anymore. Passover meal is it? Saying supper. So it's somehow through this interpretation, this translation here, supper got put in there, and rightly so. The devil having already put it into the heart of Yehuda, the son of Simon, to deliver him up, the betrayer, the one that betrayed him with a kiss. Satan possessed him. Yahusha, knowing that the Father had given all into his hands, and that he had given all into his hands, and that he had come from Elohim and was going to Elohim, rose from supper and laid aside his robe, having taken a towel. You see, so it don't talk a whole lot about it, does it? John here, but it just tells us that they're having a supper. A supper's taking place. Now, this is something that happened during this Last Supper that we didn't know about, the feet washing. So we knew they ate the supper. We knew that he passed all that around. And here they were assembled, and he's doing his foot washing deal here. Judas has been possessed by the devil. They have not sung that song yet. We know they sung the song. It was the very last thing they did to close out the supper, and then they went to the Mount of Olives where Yahushua was arrested that same evening. Okay, so this is something new. We didn't know they did this during the Last Supper, okay? He didn't do this at the Passover. He couldn't have, because he was arrested, beaten, spit on, tried, convicted, unjustly convicted, and then marched down to Golgotha, the Hill of Skulls, and was staked. And he's hanging on a tree down there. All right? So he wasn't eating no dinner. He wasn't eating no Passover. He was the Passover. See that? So what's all them in Luke, Matthew, and Mark then? It's talking about eating Passover, eating Passover, eating Passover, eating Passover. Was he eating a Passover meal? No. He was eating the Last Supper. They were just calling it the Passover. Passover, Passat, unleavened bread, any of that can refer to the 10 days of the week of unleavened bread. Yahusha, knowing that the Father had given all into his hands, and that he had come from Elohim, was going to Elohim, rose from the Last Supper, and laid aside his robe, and having taken a towel, he girded himself. After that, he put water into a basin and began to wash the feet, the feet of his pupils, and to wipe them with the towel with which he had girded. And so he came to Simon Kepha, and he said to him, Master, do you wash my feet? And Yahushua answered and said to him, You do not know what I am doing now, but you shall know after this. Kepha said to him, By no means shall you wash my feet ever. Yahushua answered him, If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Kepha said to him, Master, not only my feet, but also my hands and my head. And Yahushua said to him, He who has had a bath does not need to wash, except his feet, but is clean altogether. And you are clean, but not all of you, for he knew who would deliver him up. So he said, You are not all clean. So when he had washed their feet and taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and master, and you say, well, for I am. Then if I, master and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I give you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Truly, truly, I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is an emissary greater than he who sent him. If you know these teachings, blessed are you if you do them. This happened during the Last Supper, which had been preparation day, the day before the Passover, which is preparation day of the first day of unleavened bread. I do not speak concerning all of you. I know whom I have chosen, but that the scripture might be concluded, he who eats bread with me has lifted up his heel against me. Now I say to you before it takes place, that when it does take place, you shall believe that I am. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who receives whomever I send receives me, and he who receives me receives him who sent me. When Yahushua had said this, he was troubled in Ruach and witnessed and said, truly, truly, I say to you, one of you shall deliver me up. The pupils looking at one another, doubting of whom he spoke. And one of his pupils, whom Yahushua loved, it's not the 12. It's not saying the 12. It's saying one of his pupils that was present at the Last Supper whom Yahushua loved was reclining on the bosom of Yahushua. Simon Kepha then motioned to him to ask who it was of whom he spoke. Ask him who it is. And leaning back on the breast of Yahushua, he said to him, Master, who is it? And Yahushua answered, it is he to whom I shall give a piece of bread when I have dipped it. And having dipped the bread, he gave it to Judas, or Yehuda from Quiriath, son of Shimon. So there you go. See, now it's saying he dipped it and handed it to him. Before, what was it saying? He was dipping in the bowl with him, his bread in the bowl with him. That's him. That doesn't matter. Okay, it may have appeared to the person that wrote this, or maybe he didn't remember as much later on after he wrote this down as when it happened live. Okay, but it doesn't really matter anyway. The whole idea is that Yahushua identified who the betrayer was to everyone that was in attendance eating the Last Supper with him in the 12. Had to be. Look, the pupil whom Yahushua loved had to be another pupil. He was another pupil. He wasn't of the 12 that were chosen from the 70. Okay, he was another pupil whom Yahushua loved. Okay, other than that, they would have named him. They didn't name him for a reason, because he was being sought by the authorities. So they were keeping his name incognito. And so was he when he wrote this. Even if they were using his name at the dinner, he definitely didn't want to expose his name here as he wrote this down. So he kept his name a secret. See that? So no matter how you slice the pie, there was either another person, at least one more person at the supper, according to John here, 13, or Yahukanon, the son of thunder, would have had to been nicknamed the pupil whom Yahushua loved. And the Christian Dome, they tried to substantiate this theory by saying, well, Yahukanon and Yakub, the sons of thunder, the two brothers, and Peter were the three inside pupils whom got to see a lot more than the others, who went with Yahushua everywhere. They got to see the little girl delivered. She was woke up from death. They got to see the transfiguration. They got to see a lot of things that the others didn't. They always were going with him wherever he went. And so they say he had to love him because he took him everywhere. You got to remember those two brothers, the sons of thunder, were the second set of brothers that he chose, and Peter. And so Peter, his brother Andrew, came along, with Peter, but then he called out those two sons of thunder, Yakub and Yahukanon and Peter first. They were the first ones he chose. Okay, and so I think there was a purpose for him calling them out first. I know Andrew, Peter's brother, kind of faded out of there, but the other three did not. He called Peter, and then his brother came along. The other two brothers he called out of the boat. They were in the boat with their dad mending a net, and he called them out. All right, so that's that. Like I said, I think that, and this is where, of course, Leonardo da Vinci would have gotten his vision of the portrait that's so famous. Okay, but apparently he did not read Mark. Okay, and if he did, he ignored it or didn't understand it. Mark 14. So, anyways, I think we can safely now say, as we get deeper into this now, that there was more than just Yahusha and the 12 chosen present at the Last Supper. And I hope you all can agree to that. It's fairly obvious to me. So, that means that there's other possibilities of who the author of the book of John and John 1, 2, and 3 are. And whoever those are, the author of those 4 books has to be the author of Revelation. All right. Okay, so now with that established, I think we can go ahead and try to get into a little bit more of the nitty gritty. So let's go back into John. Go back into, let's say, chapter 11. So chapter 11. This starts talking about Lazarus and Alazar. Of course, we all know he got sick, most likely leprosy. Most likely he's Simon, known as Simon as well, the leper. Christianity tries to say that Simon the leopard was the father of Alazar, Mary, and Martha. But I don't think so. I think the father, has passed away here. And we now are reading about Alazar, Martha, and Miriam, that is living in the house of their father. So they live there because they willed it to them. They were willed his father's house. A lot of people still called it the house of Simon the leopard. If it was his father, they would still be calling it that after his death. To me, but I don't see it that way. And the way I'm understanding it is, that's Christianity. The way I'm saying it is, Simon the leopard is Alazar, and he was sick and he died of leprosy. And that's what he was healed of by Yahusha. And that's why they called him Simon the leper. Okay, so he went by Alazar, Simon the leopard, Lazarus, and Yahukanon, and the pupil whom Yahusha loved, and the other pupil, and another pupil. So he went by all that. Why? Because he was in Incognito. That's why. All right. So here he's known as Alazar and Lazarus, before he dies. And they're living in the city. A certain one was sick, Alazar from Beth Anya, the village of Miriam and her sister Martha. Now, he was also their brother. Okay. So now it was Miriam who anointed the master with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Eleazar was sick. See, that's what he was her brother. So understand here now that this person who wiped the master, anointed the master with perfume and wiped his feet with her hair, was Miriam, the sister of Eleazar, not Miriam of Magdalene. That's what most people say she was. And there's like 3 different times that we come across this in scriptures that confirms it. So Mary Magdalene was not Mary, the sister of Eleazar. Okay. There's confirmation, at least 3 more times in scripture about that. And well, I'll show it to you. So if we hit on it, I'll point it out. Okay, so anyway, Yahusha heard he was sick, and but when Yahusha heard, he said, "This sickness is not to death," but he did die. Why did Yahusha say that? He did die. But for the esteem of Elohim, so that the son of Elohim might be esteemed by it. Now Yahusha loved Martha and her sister and Eleazar. See, he loved them. He didn't just, the pupil whom Yahusha loved was Eleazar, okay, Lazarus, Yahukanon, the writer of this book, okay. But it wasn't just him who he loved. He loved Martha and Mary too. It just said so. And Yahusha loved Martha and her sister and Eleazar. He loved that whole family. In my opinion, they were childhood friends. He knew them, far back as growing up with them as a child. He'd met them as a child. And loved them as though they were a brother and a sisters to him. Okay. So anyways, we skip down now. I don't want to read this whole chapter, but it goes through it, and they talk to him about him dying. He's dead for 4 days, and he stinks. And the reason Yahusha waited and didn't go to him immediately, what he just said, the sickness is not to death. So he knew that he was going to die, but he knew that he was just falling asleep. It was just temporary in order as a sign, okay, to esteem Yahuwah with. And that he was going to raise him from the dead, or he's going to wake him up from his sleep, that he wasn't going to die the second death. He was going to wake him back up, okay? So he knew that, and there was an old Hebrew tradition or fable that said that when someone died, their spirit hovered over their body for 4 days and didn't leave the body for after the 4th day, because if something would happen and the body would start to show more signs, where it could be re-inhabited. Let's say the ruach would go into it, and then the body would come back to life. And so they had this tradition that had happened before. And so to them, they could have easily said, "Oh no, he wasn't dead for 4 days, so the ruach was still hovering over the body." So that's just something some freaky thing that happens in life. Okay, because it was their fable. They had witnessed this happening before. And so Yahusha intentionally waited to the 4th day, to where according to the Hebrew tradition, the spirit that was hovering over the body would leave on the 4th day, and the body would start corrupting. It would start stinking and rotten. Okay, returning back to dust. And so he waited intentionally for that 4th day until he went and resurrected him. Not really resurrected him, but woke him back up from the dead. Okay, and so that brings us up to verse 36, where it says 11:36 in John. The Yehudim therefore said, "See how he loved him." So there we go. So see how he loved him, and then over here in 11:5 it says, "Now Yahusha loved Martha and her sister and Alazar." So there's no doubt here now. Yahusha wept in 35. And the Yehudim therefore said, "See how he loved him," that he loved Alazar and his sisters. He loved this family greatly, deeply, like siblings. They were siblings to him, you know. That's he loved them very closely. He had a long relationship with them, is what I said, what I think. So anyway, down in 43, and when he had said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Alazar, come out." So he came out of there, bound up in his wrappings. His face was wrapped with cloth, and Yahusha told him to loosen him and let him go. Therefore, many of the Yehudim who had come to Miriam and had seen what Yahusha did believed in him. But some of them went away and reported to the Brushim and told them what Yahusha did. And so they didn't like that too much. And so this here is showing us now that there was a love for Alazar or Lazarus, okay, by Yahusha. He loved him. So he became his pupil. And so they called him the pupil whom Yahusha loved because of this event. Right here, 35 and 36. Yahusha wept. The Yehudim therefore said, "See how he loved him." So he became known as the pupil whom Yahusha loved. That's how he got that nickname. The sons of thunder got their nickname. Yahukanon and Yakub got their nickname by wanting to call fire down on a village in Samaritan village and destroy people, kill people. They were hot-headed, fiery tempers, very ambitious, very selfish people. Them two guys were lacking love, to say the least. And we'll get into that. Okay, so as we move on here now, let's get a look here now at Yahukanon 12. Yahukanon 12:5 or 9. Yahukanon 12:9 through 13. Then a great crowd of the Yehudim learned that he was there. Speaking of Yahusha. And they came, not on account of Yahusha only, but also to see Alazar, whom he had raised from the dead. And the chief priest resolved to kill Alazar as well, because on account of him, many of the Yehudim went away and believed in Yahusha. Okay. I'm going to read down just two more verses. On the next Yom, a great multitude who had come to the festival, when they heard that Yahusha was coming to Jerusalem, took the branches of palm trees and went out to meet him, and were crying out, "Hashanu, blessed is he who is coming in the name of Yahuwah." Okay. So we can see here now there's this big event, this festival's going on. The crowds are all everywhere. The authorities are looking to kill Alazar, because she's telling he's a witness and giving testimony that Yahusha raised him from the dead, which is proof for many that he's Yahuwah, because only Yahuwah can do such a thing, and so that people were believing that he was Yahuwah. And so they wanted to kill that Alazar to shut him up, quiet him down. Okay, he's helping the cause of Yahusha and verifying Yahusha's testimony that he's Yahuwah. And so they want to destroy Alazar. So now there is a need for a nickname We can see where there's a need to use his nickname. And it began up because of this, and also a need not to be going by Eleazar or Lazarus, because he knows the chief priest has headhunters out searching for him. They wanted to destroy him, eliminate him, execute him. All right. All right. So, matter of fact, I'll go as far as saying neither one of the sons of thunder wrote anything that's at least what's in this canonized list here from the Romans. It may be in some other writings that they got a hold of and destroyed, but they're definitely not in here. Don't forget the theme of John and John 1, 2, and 3 is truth and love. It's all over the place, man. That's the main thing. Right now, we're just looking for evidence or proof that the writer of these four is not Yahukanon, the son of thunder, but Yahukanon, Incognito, Eleazar, that wrote all these. Okay, so look at John 18, 15, 17. John 18, 15 through 17. Then Simon Shimon Kepha followed Yahusha with another pupil. Another pupil. There's no name there. Notice that he's not naming himself anymore here. It's another pupil, the pupil whom Yahusha loved. He goes by Eleazar, but he's not calling himself anything else, especially when he's with someone else that they would go find them and beat them up and torture them to try to find out his location, his whereabouts. So he's not giving them any information. No, he's not linking his name to anyone. You see that? So this author is incognito for sure. He's not exposing who he is. So it can't be Yahukanon, the son of thunder. He was brave, outspoken, courageous, ambitious. He was outgoing. He was an extrovert. He wanted to punch you in the nose. He was ready for a good fight. Okay. He wasn't shying or hiding from anybody, right? Him or his brother. Although they did run and hide and deny Yahusha and go and run and hide as when he was executed. They did do that. That hasn't happened yet. Okay, so at least up to this point. All right, so he lost a little bit of courage there too, just like all of them did. The entire flock scattered after the shepherd was hit, wounded. So, and Simon Kepha followed Yahusha with another pupil. And that pupil was known to the high priest and went with Yahusha into the courtyard of the high priest. So this another pupil was known by the high priest in that way. He somehow talked to him and then allowed him to bring Peter in to the courtyard. So he snuck him in there because the high priest was covering him. And so he went with Yahusha in the courtyard of the high priest, but Kepha was standing outside at the door. So the other Talmud, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to her, who kept the door, and brought Kepha in. See that? Kind of strange, isn't it? Okay, so he had to be incognito somehow. He had done something to change his looks or whatever. He definitely changed his name, but the high priest knew him. So the high priest must have been covering up for him. They were all out to kill him. Kind of strange, isn't it? So could this be Eleazar here that they're talking about? It really seems like it is. The connection to the high priest, it could be through Yahusha, because remember, there was some priests that were sneaking off at night and going and listening to Yahusha speak, and they believed, but they weren't admitting it. They were keeping it away from the Pharisees and Sanhedrin, because they didn't want to be persecuted because they believed in Yahusha. So there was definitely some stuff going on behind stage, that was very secretive, that other people didn't know about. And this could have been one of them. Okay. So, of course, Kepha denies Yahusha 3 times. We know that. So, as we go look through some more evidence here, let's go to John 19, 25 and 28. It says, and by the stake of Yahusha stood his mother and his mother's sister Miriam, and the Asha of Clopha, and Miriam from Magdala. So there you go. So you got all them Marys standing there at the stake of Yahusha. Then Yahusha, seeing his mother and the pupil whom he loved. Okay, so there we go. The author's still hiding his identity. The pupil whom he loved would have been Eleazar, and he's standing there at the stake. He wasn't one of the 12, so he didn't have to scatter. So it was written that they'd strike the shepherd and the sheep were scattered. Okay, well, he wasn't one of the sheep. He was just another pupil. Remember, there were 70 other pupils, and then there was crowds and throngs that followed as well and listened to his teachings. Remember, when we first started out, we talked about that. There were 70 pupils. Out of those 70, he took 12. Then out of those 12, he chose 3, which was Yahukanon and Yakub, the sons of thunder, and Peter. So this then would be Eleazar, which is Incognito, going by the name of Yahukanon, but he didn't even use that. Why did this get named Yahukanon, this letter? Because Christendom did it. They contributed this book to Yahukanon, the son of thunder. That's why it's called John, Yahukanon. They did it. They don't know who wrote this. They just assumed and then finally adopted that the author of this book was Yahukanon, the son of thunder. And then they infiltrated it or mixed it into their doctrine. It's become their doctrine, part of their Christendom ideology. Okay, but in reality, they had no right even naming this book because they really didn't know who wrote it. It's obvious. Now, did Eleazar and Lazarus, the same person, the pupil whom Yahusha loved, the other pupil, did he go by Yahukanon? Well, there's some evidence that he did go by Yahukanon. Okay. But more clearly, the Christendom, the church fathers, came to that conclusion, which was incorrect, of who this author was, and they contributed it to Yahukanon, the son of thunder. That's why it's called Yahukanon. There was Yahukanon the Immerser. He didn't write any books, although they tried to say that he did. A lot of people in Christendom, different sects, will say that this was written by Yahukanon the Immerser. How silly is that? We know that he was beheaded before Yahusha was even staked. The execution, when the executional stake of the Romans, okay, he was beheaded before Yahusha died. Okay, so he didn't write these books. So, and then there's Yahukanon Mark, which most agree to being Mark, the author of the book of Mark. Instead of going by Yahukanon, you went by Mark. Why? Yahukanon was it was the most common name in that day. And it even is today. It's one of the most common names, even in our time. But back then, they estimate anywhere between 5 to 8% of the population of Israel was named Yahukanon at birth. So it was a very popular name. So if you were incognito, I guess Yahukanon would be a good name to choose because there's so many of them. They wouldn't be able to really pinpoint you. So it wasn't a common name, So it's like, how are we going to find somebody going by Yahukanon? 8% of Israel's named Yahukanon. See what I mean? So it'd be a good choice for somebody incognito. So anyway, the pupil whom he loved standing by and said to his mother, I shall see your son. Then to the pupil he said, see your mother. And from that hour, that pupil took her to his own. Okay. And this Yahusha, knowing that all had been accomplished in order that the scripture might be accomplished, said, I thirst. Very powerful stuff, man. Okay. So, this reads as though the writer of this book, the author, is speaking about himself here. Okay, without exposing who he is. Look over John 2:22. John 22. So she ran and came to Simon Kepha and to the other pupil whom Yahusha loved. There you go. See that? So and I said over here, another pupil was probably him that knew the high priest. Okay. And over here, he's using that same title. And he's saying, so she ran, speaking of Miriam from Magdala, and came to Simon Kepha and to the other pupil. The other pupil, see that? So he wrote that, the author he didn't write his name, whom Yahusha loved, indicating it's the same one that we just wrote about in 26, the people whom he loved. See that? So he's going by that title. He's accepted that title and he's using it to stay hidden. Okay, so it's pretty obvious now that the writer of this book is the pupil whom he loved, or the other pupil, or another pupil, or other pupil whom Yahusha loved. Can't be Yahukanon, the son of thunder. He wouldn't hesitate to let you know who he was. If you didn't like it, he'd punch you in your nose. He wasn't afraid of nothing. He was a strong man. He wanted to call fire down from the Shemaim and kill people in front of Yahusha even. All right, so I think we can safely establish here now that the pupil that was leaning on the bosom or the chest of Yahusha at the Last Supper was the other pupil. He wasn't one of the 12. But yet the 12 were there. So that alone makes 14. Because he said it was the pupil whom Yahusha loved, was leaning on his chest. He didn't identify. See, that was right up to where Yahusha was going to die. The next day, he was going to be, that same night, actually, that same evening, Yahushua was going to be arrested and die, be staked and die, and buried in his tomb before the following evening, which would have been the high Shabbat. Go to John 20:24. Let me see, make sure I'm in the right place here now. John 20:24. It says, but Thomas, or Toma, called the twin, one of the 12. So he's one of the 12 now, this guy here. Usually if they're talking about one of the 12, it says so, unless it's obvious, was not with them when Yahushua came. So he came and he showed himself to them after his death. After he was resurrected, he showed himself to them. But this Toma, one of the 12, wasn't there. So the other people said to him, we have seen the master. But he said to them, unless I see his hands, the mark of the nails, and put my finger into the imprint of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I shall by no means believe. And after 8 days, his pupils were again inside, and Thomas with them. Yahushua came, the doors having been shut, and he stood in the midst and said, peace to you. So he walked through the walls, or just appeared in the inner room. The doors were closed and locked. Then he said to Thomas, bring your finger here and see my hands, and bring your hand and put it into my side. And do not be unbelieving, but believing. And Toma, or Thomas, answered and said to him, my master and my Elohim. So meaning my master and my, my creator. Okay. He's acknowledging that Yahushua is Yahuwah, is what he's doing. And Yahushua said to him, Toma, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and have believed. Have not seen and believed what? That Yahushua is Yahuwah. Thomas admitted it when he saw him, and he said, oh, wow, you're master, and you are Elohim, you are my creator. Okay? And he realized it and pronounced it, proclaimed it loudly, screamed it. He said, you're blessed because you've seen. He said, there's no doubt in your mind because you see me alive. You know only Yahuwah can do that. Okay, but now he's saying, blessed are those who have not seen and have believed what I have proclaimed. What did Yahushua proclaim when he walked in the dust? He proclaimed to be Yahuwah in flesh, robed in flesh. That's what he was telling everybody he was. That's why they wanted to stone him and kill him. Okay, so keep that in mind. Or listen to this real quick. 29 through 31. Yahushua said to him, Toma, oh, I already read that. Okay, go to 30. There were indeed many other signs that Yahushua did in the presence of his pupils, which are not written in this book. But these have been written so that you believe that Yahushua is the Mashiach, the son of Elohim, and that believing you might possess life in his name. Now look over here at 21:25. Now there is much else that Yahushua did. If every one of them were written down, I think that the world itself would not contain the written books. Amen. So listen to that. Right here it's saying that Yahusha did in the presence of the pupils. They saw, witnessed it, signs that are not written in this book. And over here, next door, it's saying that he did so much else that it's not written in this book. That if everything he did, all the signs, wonders, and everything he said, and everything he did, okay, was written down, not even the world could contain those books. He did so much other things and said so much other things outside of the covers of this book that we cannot contain him within these pages. You cannot rightfully say, if it's not written down in the scriptures, it can't be truth. You can't say that. If Yahusha revealed something to somebody other than what's in this book and they tell you he did, you don't have the right to say you're lying because it's not written down in here. It very well could be. Think about what the statement here is. Yahusha did in the presence of his pupils, which are not written in this book, many other signs that Yahusha did. It's not written in this book. Many others. Then over here, there is much else that Yahusha did. If every one of them are written down, I think the world itself could not contain the books. You understand how much more stuff that is, other than what's written in the two covers of this canonized list of the Romans. Be careful, man, what you're saying. You know, you're limiting the Creator. You're limiting your Maker. You're quarreling with your Maker. You need to stop doing that. That's bad thing to do. You can quarrel with anybody you want, but I wouldn't quarrel with my Maker. Okay, stop trying to confine him, control him, restrain him, define him. Can't do it. You need to stop trying. Just accept him as truth and love. And accept this. Everything is possible with Yahusha. Everything is possible with Yahuwah. Okay, so now let's look at 21:18 through 26. Now, this is very interesting here. This gets a little bit head scratcher. So let's look at it closely. 21:18. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and walked where you wished. But when you are old, you shall stretch out your hands, and another shall gird you and bring you where you do not wish. Now this he said, signifying by what death he would esteem Elohim. Speaking to Peter about how he's going to die. Now this he said, signifying by what death you would esteem Elohim. And having said this, he said to him, follow me. What does that mean, follow me? That means walk in my footprints. That's what that means. Walk in my exact footprints behind me. Follow me. Follow my footprints. And Kepha, turning around, saw the pupil whom Yahusha loved following. There it is again. There's that title. Who also had leaned on his breast at the supper. Bam! There it is. See, he was at the supper, the pupil whom Yahusha loved. There's only two things that can be happening here, folks. Either Christendom. I didn't mean to say that. Christendom said, what they say is correct, that the pupil whom Yahusha loved is Yahukanon, the son of thunder. And there was only 12 with Yahusha that evening at the Last Supper. Or the pupil whom Yahusha loved is Eleazar Incognito that was at the Last Supper leaning on the breast of Yahusha. Meaning that there had to be at least 14 people present then, because we know the 12 were there and we know Yahusha was there. And according to Mark, there were others there besides those 14. And they were saying, is it I? Is it I? They were in the conversation of who the betrayer was. It's clear. Mark is clear on that. See that? So could the pupil whom Yahusha loved be going by the substitute name of Yahukanon? Possibly, yes. But that's, that's neither here or there. It doesn't really matter because they named this book not after him anyway, but after the son of thunder. Christendom did. We just talked about that. Okay, so very interesting here now. And said, Master, who is the one who is delivering you up? That's the one that was leaning on his breast at the Last Supper. Seeing him, Kepha said to Yahusha, but Master, what about this one? So what's Kepha saying here? What about this one? He's asking, how will this one die? How about this one? How's he going to die? Paraphrasing, but this is what Kepha's asking Yahusha. Yahusha said to him, if I wish him to remain till I come, what is that to you? You follow me. Okay, you follow my footsteps. Okay, you follow me. You're going to walk in the true pattern of Yahusha, and you're going to die. Follow me right into death, because you're going to do exactly what I'm doing. You're going to die just like I'm doing. You're going to drink the cup that I drink. That's why he's telling you, follow me. Therefore, this word went out among the brothers that this Talman would not die. However, Yahusha did not say to him that he would not die, but if I desire him to remain until I come, what is that to you? Okay, so very interesting. The author is saying he didn't say I wasn't going to die. He just said if I want to remain till he comes, but then I might die. There's a possibility I might die after he comes. It's appointed to all men to die once and then judgment, right? So the Yahukanon, or the people whom Yahusha loved here, is kind of, sticking up for Yahusha, kind of like saying, he didn't say that. He said, what is it? If I desire him to remain till I come, what is it to you? He didn't say I wouldn't die. See, so he's kind of defending Yahusha's point of view here, his position. You see that? That's what he's doing. So then he says, this is the pupil who bears witness about these things. This is the pupil who bears witness about these things and wrote these things. He was witnessing of all this stuff, these events, and he's writing about them. This is the pupil who's doing this writing. And we know that his witness is true. Now there's much else that Yahusha did. If every one of them are written down, I think that the world itself would not contain the books written. Okay, so very, very interesting. Let's take a look real quick at Revelations 10:11. Look at Revelations 10:11. Revelations 10:11 says, and he said to me, you have to prophesy again concerning many peoples, nations, and tongues, and sovereigns. Okay. So then right after he tells him that, this messenger tells the writer of Revelations that, okay, which is going by Yahukanon, which is the first time we know. And so we go to Revelations 1. Go to Revelations 1. Yeah, I can't find it, but anyway, in Revelations, the first time he tells us that he's Yahukanon. He's using that fictitious name, Yahukanon. Okay, so now we know the Revelations is the same writer as the other 4 Johns. Okay, and now he's telling him you have to prophesy again to many peoples, nations, tongues, and sovereigns. And then right after that, guess what he starts talking about? The 2 witnesses. Is that a coincidence? He's told he would have to prophesy again, and then the very next thing he starts talking about is the 2 witnesses at the end times, last 3.5 years. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. I think he's telling us that he's going to be one of the witnesses right there. He's exposing it. Have you ever thought about that? Yeah, right there. He's telling you that he's going to have to prophesy again, and then as soon as that's the end of chapter 10, and then he goes into 11, and guess what? He starts telling us about the two witnesses that shall prophesy for 1,260 days, clad in sackcloth. So what he's doing is he's just saying, okay, I have to prophesy again. And then he starts talking about two witnesses, and I'm going to be one of these two witnesses. That's what it looks like to me he's doing. You take that right into context. Okay, so if we compare that to 21:23, you can see that it does appear as though Yahukanon, or the pupil whom Yahusha loved, if you will remain until I come, until Yahusha comes, or at least to be one of the two witnesses, and then he'll die and lay in the streets, and then he'll be resurrected by Yahusha when he shows up on the second coming. That's what it seems to be saying to me. Okay, so therefore then, since there's no specific name other than what we've been given here, this is the people who bears witness about these things and wrote these things. And we have to, I think we can safely assume or even conclude that the people whom Yahusha loved is Eleazar, who wrote this. Okay, and if we go back over here to John 14, we can read it all through his writings. His main theme is truth and love. Truth and love, truth and love, truth and love. You know, I am the truth. I am the way. I'm the truth. On and on and on. Okay. Truth and love is what he's talking about. All right. So it's not that he progressed from being a mean pupil, went to punch people in the nose and set them on fire, to a guy that, you know, gradually got old and started loving people instead of wanting to beat them up. Then became a loving person through his trials and teaching and studies and everything. Now, he's the same person. He's into truth and love from the beginning to the end through all his writings. And we'll see that here in a minute. So it's easy for them to, because they want so badly to promote Yahukanon, one of the sons of thunders, as being the writer here. They even put his name on it, you know, stamp the autograph on it for him. And so they don't want to be exposed. Truthfully, they don't know. You should just left it blank and just put unknown author up there if they didn't understand that it was Eleazar, or the people who, they should even put the people whom Yahusha loved and dedicated it to him. But to put Yahukanon on there is falsehood. It's deceit. And it shouldn't have done that. So, although it's funny how Yahuwah works, right? He will not be mocked. It's funny that this pupil that wrote John 1, 2, and 3, and Revelations, he did give us his name, Yahukanon, in Revelations. You know, so it's pretty interesting. So anyway, let's go to Acts. Look at Acts 5 real quick. It says, this is kind of interesting to me here. I just wanted to share this. Starting at verse 4, it says, and when he ceased speaking, he said to Simon, pull out into the deep and let down your net for a catch. And Simon answering said to him, Master, we have toiled all night and caught none. But at your word I shall let down the net. And when they did so, they caught a great number of fish. And their net was breaking, and they motioned to their fellows in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both the boats so that they were sinking. And when Simon Kepha saw it, he fell down at the knees of Yahusha, saying, Depart from me, for I am a man, a sinner, Master. How amazing is that statement, man? How many have read that statement really quick and just read it right over and never thought about that statement? What's happening here is Peter immediately recognized that Yahusha is Yahuwah incarnated. That's why he's calling him Master with a capital M. Immediately, he said, Depart from me. I'm a man, a sinner, Master. Shouldn't even be around me. You know, that if that don't touch your heart, man, I don't know what will. I mean, that's mind-blowing to me. For astonishment had seized him and all those with him at the catch of fish which took place. So too were Yakub and Yahukanon, the sons of Zebediah, who were fellows with Simon, friends with Simon, workers. Then Yahusha said to Simon, Do not fear, from now on you shall fish for men. And having brought the boats to land, they left all and followed him. They left all the boats, the nets, the fish, the oars, everything, left it and followed Yahusha. Is that not amazing? It's totally mind-blowing. They recognized. So here, notice Yakub and Yahukanon, the sons of Zebediah, the sons of that Yahusha would later name sons of thunder. Is it not amazing here that they were working together in almost every instance that they're mentioned in scriptures? They're together. Matter of fact, I think there's only one time, if I ain't mistaken, that they're not mentioned together. Okay, and it has to be a reason for that, and we're going to get into that here in a second. But it's when Yakub, is killed, is martyred, killed with a sword by Harold. Okay, it doesn't mention Yahukanon. That's the only time. Other than that, they're always together, mentioned together. I mean, they must have been extremely close brothers, man. They hung out all the time. Okay. But that's the only time that Yakub was ever mentioned without Yahukanon is when he was killed by Harold. And we're going to get into that here in a second. But I just wanted to show you that verse, man. That, to me, is so powerful. Such a powerful thing. Acts 6:13. Wait a minute. Okay, it's Luke 6:13 here. Luke 6:13. And when it became daylight, he called near his pupils and chose from them 12, whom he also named emissaries. So here, see that? So he called. This is when he chose the 12 out of the 70. Okay, and then, like I said, he even refined it even more and chose 3 out of the 12. Okay, the pupil whom Yahusha loved wasn't part of the 12 or the 3, but he may have been within the 70, but I don't think so. I think he knew him way before that as a child, all the way back into his childhood. And so he saw Eleazar, Miriam, and Martha as brothers and sisters. He was very, very close with them. Okay. And later on, he was called a pupil when he started, after he woke up from the dead and he started following Yahushua around everywhere he went. He became a pupil like the 70 and or the 12, and he was called another pupil or the other pupil or the pupil whom Yahushua loved. And so they acknowledged him as a pupil, as a Talmudim, okay, but not of the 12 chosen, or I don't even think of the 70 really. But when it became daylight, he called near his pupils, 70 of them, and chose from them 12, whom he also named emissaries. This is what Christians call apostles. Simon, whom he also named Kepha. This just him changing their names. Okay, Simon to Peter or Kepha, the sons of thunder. He nicknamed the sons of thunder. He changed names, man. Is speaking of his majesty. He has the authority and power to change a name, man. Just like Yahuwah did in the Tanakh when he changed Abraham's name and Sarah's name and Jacob's name to Yisrael. Think about that. So here he's still displaying his authority, his majesty, and power to change a name, just like he did when he was in the Tanakh. Powerful, man. So he called near his pupils and chose the 12, whom he named emissaries. Simon, who was also Kepha, and his brother Andrew. See, there's his brother. And then the second set of brothers, Jakub and Yahukanon, the sons of thunder. Philip and Bartholomew, Mattathiyahu and Toma, Jakub, the son of Alphae, and Shimon, the one called the Ardent One. Yahuwah, the son of Jakub, and Yehuda. See, there's several Yehudas. And Yehuda from Quiriath, who also became the betrayer, betrayed him with a kiss. In other words, he used Yahusha's love against him. So here you go, man. So he's naming the 12, and you can plainly see that Lazarus or Eleazar is not in the 12. Okay. And the only Yahukanon that I see in here is one of the sons of thunder. There's several Yehudas or Judases. Okay. So we see that Eleazar's not involved there. There is one Yahukanon. Okay. So let's go look at Mark 9:38. So Mark 9:38 says, well, let's back up because there's an interesting thing up here I want to point out. Let's go to 37. Whoever receives one of such little children in my name receives me. And whoever receives me receives not me, but the one who sent me. He said he's denying that he's a second deity. He's saying, you're not receiving me, you're receiving the Father, because I am the Father. So he's kind of he's scratching the sun out right there, just so people can understand that he's the Father. See that? And Yahukanon, now here's a Yahukanon, and Yahukanon said to him, Teacher, we saw someone who does not follow us, casting out demons in your name, and we hindered him because he does not follow us. Now, who does that sound like? Does that sound like Yahukanon, Eleazar, who teaches truth and love and peace and joy? Or does that sound like Yahukanon, the son of thunder, okay, who wants to fiery temper, who wants to ambitious, selfish. He's showing the lack of love here in Mark 9:38, because he went up and told this man, "You stop." Okay, he said right here. So who does not follow us? Driving demons out in your name, and we hindered him because he does not follow us. You don't follow us. You stop doing that. You stop using the master's name. You're not one of us. Knock it off. I'm going to punch you in your nose. Now, who does that sound like? He's mad. He's not showing love to this man. He's trying to tell this man, you ain't one of us. You don't get to do that. You don't get to use the master's name and drive out demons. Stop doing it. I'm going to beat you up. I'm going to put you right in your nose. Do it again. So here we go now. He's back talking to the master. Look at that back up here a little bit again. Go up to 34. You got to see what this man is like. In 34, and they were silent, and on the way they had disputed with one another who was the greatest. There they go again, disputing and quarreling and fighting among each other, the 12. Let's just see who is the greatest. Who do you suppose started that conversation up again? This is the second time now that we've read that they're doing this. Well, of course, it had to be Yahukanon and Yaakov, sons of thunder, man. That's what they're very tough guys, man. They want to battle it out, okay? They want to quarrel and fight and argue and even fight if they need to. They don't care, okay? They're very ambitious. They want to be the greatest. They're very selfish. They want the best of the kingdom. Fiery tempers, and they're lacking love, even to their brothers, because they want to be above them instead of serving them. You seen what type of personality this Yahukanon, one of the sons of thunder, his personality is? It's not one of truth and love, folks. It doesn't sound like the person that wrote Yahukanon and John 1, John 2, and John 3, does it? No. This guy's got a different personality. And sitting down, he called the 12 and said to them, if anyone wishes to be first, he shall be last of all and a servant of all. Bam. He keeps telling them the same message, but those thick skulls ain't hearing it, man. They're probably sitting there going, man, you just wait till I get you alone. I'm going to punch you right in the nose, Thomas, thinking you're greater than me. These guys were aggressive, man. They weren't messing around. They showed lack of love in this example and in others. Yeah, look at Luke real quick. I'll come back to this. Go to Luke real quick. Luke 9. Luke 9:54. And his Talmudim, Yaakov and Yahukanon, seeing it, said, Master, do you wish us to command fire to come down from the heaven and destroy them, as also Eliyahu did? So here's the same two guys now that went over there and told that man to stop chasing out demons in the master's name because you do not follow us, and forbid them to do it. They hindered the man. Okay, probably made him feel scared, feel bad, feel unwanted. Maybe caused him to stumble in his belief a little bit. These are the same guys, the same two guys that went over here in verse 51. It came to be when the days of his raising up were being completed, even he set his face to go to Jerusalem, and he sent messengers ahead of him, and they went into a village of the Samaritans to prepare for him. And they did not receive him because his face was set to the journey to Jerusalem. And his Talmudim, Yaakov and Yahukanon, the sons of thunder, seeing it, said, Master, do you wish us to command fire to come down from the heaven and destroy them? Kill them. They wanted to kill them, burn them up with fire, and kill them. As Yahoo did. But having turned, he rebuked them and said, you do not know of what Ruach you are. For the son of Adam did not come to destroy men's lives, but to save them. And they went on to another village. So Yahusha corrected them, rebuked them. Rightfully so. Okay. So now we can see here a little bit more about the personality of the sons of thunder. Now, before you start saying, "Oh, why did he pick them? Oh, why were these guys so mean? I thought they were loving and kind and gentle and patient. I thought they were, pious followers, pacifists. What's going on here? I didn't realize that these pupils were like this." Okay, before you start talking like that, you got to remember one thing. They were in the inner circle. They were the chosen three. They were in the highest calling that you could get. They were in the top three. Yahusha chose them for a reason. And so before you go bad mouthing them or scratching your head, you better yield to the will of Yahuwah, who chose these guys. Place them above the other 12 with Peter. So let that sink in. So before we start judging people, books by the cover, we better know the story, right? There's a good reason he chose them. Yahuwah doesn't make mistakes. Okay, so he hindered these people because they did not follow us. Okay, this was Yahukanon. This was not the author of the book. Eleazar is. You can see the personality conflict here. The contrast between personalities is huge for all to see. Can't deny it. Okay, there's no way that this man converted from being this aggressive, lacking love, this ambitious, this selfish, this big of a fiery temper, to a meek, mild, pacifist man who they taught love and truth before he died. That progression is fake. That's a lie from Christendom. They don't know what they're talking about. Okay, this Yahukanon here is not the same Yahukanon who wrote these books. That's why it appears to be a progression of this man's personality, but it's not. They're the same person they've always been. Okay, from the beginning to the end, they remained the same. Okay, what did they increase in? Knowledge. Increased in knowledge, which put them into truth and into love. I'm sure, okay, that they did learn this over time. But maybe they did not. We don't know. They died early. At least we know Yakub did. He was the first to die, death of a martyr, the sword of Herod. We'll get into it. Okay, in the meantime, look at 939. And Yahusha said, do not hinder him, for no one who works a miracle in my name is able to really speak evil of me. For he who is not against us is for us. Wow. All righty. So there again, a rebuking and a teaching from Yahusha to the sons of thunder. I have a little note here. It's about Matthew 20 or 7:21. Let's see what that's all about. Matthew 7:21 says, that's when it says, not everyone who says to me, Master, Master, shall enter into the reign of Shemaim, but he who is doing the desire of my Father in the Shemaim. Okay, so that's just kind of a cross reference, I guess I'll put on there. And then I also got Corinthians here. Something. Let me see. Make sure it's nothing real important. I won't pass it up if it is. Let's see, 12. I got 1 Corinthians 12, 3. 1 Corinthians 12, 3. What's that say? Therefore, I make known to you that no one speaking by the Ruach of Yahuwah says Yahuwah is cursed, and no one is able to say that Yahushua is master except by the Ruach HaKodesh. Okay, so that's a good point to put to that. And so what is that saying to us? The cross reference for us. Basically, do not hinder him, for no one who works a miracle in my name is able to readily speak evil of me, for he who is not against us is for us. And so this was the will of the Ruach HaKodesh. The Ruach HaKodesh was working through this man. How do we know? Because apparently the demons were listening to him. That's how we know. So, yeah. So Yahushua was being pretty subtle here with the explanation, but what we can get out of it is this man who was casting out demons in his name, was doing it with the help of the influence of the Ruach HaKodesh was working through this man, because the demons, if they were casting them out, that means the demons were listening to him. Okay. All right. So very interesting, but the personality of the sons of thunder of John, his brother was just like him. They were just like two peas in a pod, man. They were always together, you know. So what you read about Yahukanon, the son of Zebediah, is the same thing as his brother. You could be reading about his brother just as well, because he was exactly like him. They had the same personalities. Okay. So let me see. Let's continue looking at them guys. Son of Thunder. Let me see. 3:17. Did we go over that? Mark 3:17. No. Okay, it says, and he appointed the 12. Simon, to whom he added the name Kepha. This is confirmation. And Yaakub, the son of Zebediah, and Yahukanon, the brother of Yaakub, the son of Zebediah, to whom he added the name Beni Regis. That is sons of thunder. So there you go. Sons of thunder. And so why did he name them sons of thunder? Okay, Yahushua did, because of their aggressive personalities, and because in Luke 9:54 they wanted to call fire down on some people and kill them, burn them up with fire, destroy them. And so they were very aggressive, very overzealous. They were wanting to do harm. They just wanted to take over and control, very controlling, very outgoing. They were not gentle, peaceful, and loving, as the author of John projects himself over and over and over again. So there's proof that Yahushua did name them the sons of thunder because of their aggressive personalities. Okay. Now let's get a look at Matthew 20:20. This will kind of show you a little bit more about the insensitivity, the aggressiveness, the the viciousness, the selfishness, and the lack of love that these two men projected. Why am I bringing all this up about these two men? In order so you can see the conflict, the contrast between the author of John 1, 2, and 3, and Revelations. You can see there's a different personality, man. It can't be the author. This is the person, okay, that the circus has awarded the authorship to of these books. And it can't be so. It's a different person, man. The author of John nickname was the pupil whom Yahusha loved. This is your mother. Behold, this is your son. Take care of each other in love. Peaceful, gentleness, love, truth. Okay, projected. Okay, all through them writings. This insensitive, aggressive, fiery tempered, ambitious, selfish, lacking love person that we're reading about is named the Son of Thunder. So he can't have two nicknames, does he? The pupil whom Yahushua loved and the Son of Thunder? No. Those are in contrast. That's opposites. Unless he's bipolar. He'd have to be bipolar or have split personalities in order to do both of those, because those nicknames are opposites. Totally at the end, toward the end of the spectrum, on each end of the spectrum. The people whom Yahushua loved, the gentle, passionate, loving, seeker of truth, and the aggressive, ambitious, fiery tempered, lacking love, the one to call down fire out of heaven and kill people, and who wanted to punch that guy in the nose for using the name. He wasn't following them, wasn't part of them. How dare you do that? I'll beat your butt if I see you do it again. He's on this end of the spectrum. Can't be the same person unless he has split personalities or some kind of bipolar or something. You see what I'm saying? Circus is wrong. Yahukanon, the Son of Thunder, is not the author of these books. It's Elazar, the pupil whom Yahushua loved. Let's continue to look. So looking here a little bit harder at Yahukanon and Yakub, the sons of thunder personality, or the sons of Zebediah's personality. Turn to Matthew 20 through 28. We'll see they're insensitive, aggressive, selfish, lacking love, personality on display right here. Can't mistake it. You can't be mistaken. Okay, so here it is. Then the mother of the sons of Zebediah came to him with her sons, the mother, bowing down and making a request of him. So they must have put their mother up to this, I would say. And he said to her, "What do you wish?" She said to him, "Order that these two sons of mine might sit, one on your right hand and the other on the left in your reign." But Yahushua answering said, "You do not know what you ask. Are you able to drink the cup that I am about to drink, and to be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with?" They said to him, "We are able." Aggressive, man. We're able. And he said to them, "You shall indeed drink my cup," which means you're going to die. Could be you're going to die the way I died, but it doesn't mean that. It just means you're going to die like I'm going to die. You're going to drink this cup for the kingdom, for the people. You will die. You will be a martyr for the reign. Okay? And you shall be immersed with the immersion that I am immersed with. Same immersion he was immersed with. Immersed into the Ruach HaKodesh, immersed into the name, immersed into the everlasting covenant. Okay? Same immersion he was immersed with. Follow me. Walk in the true pattern of Yahushua. But to sit on my right hand and on my left is not mine to give, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared by my Father. Predestined. Already got a name on it. It's already given to somebody. You can't do that. And when the 10 heard it, they were displeased with these two brothers. The two that's always quarreling, making them fight and argue over who's the greatest. Okay. But Yahuwah called them near and said, "You know that the rulers of the nations are masters over them, and those who are great exert authority over them. But it shall not be so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you, let him be your servant. even as the son of Adam did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So there Yahusha goes rebuking them again, giving them the same exact teaching for their ambition. Okay. So this is a total, if you're picking up what this is laying down, it should be knocking your brains loose. Okay, what's going on, man? Yahusha is sitting there telling them that he's going to die. His time is near. He's going to be leaving them. He's going to die. And these two guys are so insensitive and lacking love and compassion that the only thing they can think of doing is making up this little scheme with their mother to come in there and help them talk the master into letting them have the thrones, the chairs that sit on the left and the right of him above everybody else. He's telling them, look, you need to learn to be a servant, okay? And you need to put yourself last and serve others and put them ahead of yourself. If you want to be first, you need to learn to be last and be a servant of others like I am. That's what he's telling them. But these insensitive jerks, knowing he's going to die, is asking him to sit at his left and his right before he dies. You know what that's in comparison to? That's like one of your friends or one of your relatives or your brother or somebody getting ready to die. Say, I'm going to die. I only got 3 days to live, man. And instead of you grabbing them and hugging them, so what can I do for you, man? What can I do for you in your last hours on this earth, man? I'll do anything. Just tell me, just order me what to do. Instead, hey, can I have your car? How about your house? How about your gun collection? How about your big screen TV? How about that Corvette in your garage? Can you give me all that stuff? Sign it over to me before you die? That's what that's like. Very insensitive, very selfish, lack of love, lack of compassion, lack of caring. That's what these guys' personality was like. This guy cannot be the author of truth and love, folks. He cannot be. Think about it harder. So, like I mentioned before, there's another Yahukanon, the Baptist, Mercer. He's out, man. He was beheaded. There's no way that he wrote any of this. Some Christian sects try to teach that, and they're just totally off base. I don't know how they can even begin to say that. But he's dead, you know. There's just no way. Okay, so here's a really good thing here I want you to see real quick in Acts 12. And I don't know if we can safely say that Yahukanon, the son of thunder, died before Yakub, his brother. I don't know. But this is very interesting here in chapter 12, because I think out of five times or whatever it is in Scripture where these two sons of thunder are mentioned, it's always together, man. They're always together. It's always Yahukanon, the brother of Yakub, you know, sons of thunder of Zabaniah. You know, it's always mentions the brothers together, even when they're with Peter or by themselves. The only time that they're mentioned, either one of them's mentioned, is then they're not together is here in Acts 12. And it has to do with the death of Yakub. And even in his death, it mentions his brother. Okay, they're never mentioned alone. Even in his martyrship, his death, his brother's mentioned along with his name. So it leads me to wonder, and there's no evidence of this that I know of, that Yahukanon did not die before Yakub. He wasn't around. If he did remain alive, what happened to him? It really doesn't talk about him anymore. He's not even talked about. Okay, so this is another reason why Christendom, after the death of his brother by Harold, says John still lived to be an old man and went up into Asia Minor and on up into Ephesus, and lived up there until he's in his 90s and died a silent death. Nobody knew of him anymore. He just went up there and grew old and died peacefully and silently. Hard to believe after we just read his personality. To me, he would went looking for Harold or the guy that or something, try to get revenge on his brother or something, and call fire down on him or something. I mean, he was always with his brother. So let's look at this real quick. That'll be 12:1-5, Acts. And about the time Herod the sovereign put forth his hands to do evil to some from the assembly, they called this Herod Agrippa. Okay, I call him Junior, Harold Junior. Okay, put forth his hands to do evil to some from the assembly. Okay, and he killed Yakub, the brother of Yahukanon, with a sword. See that? So even at his death, they mention he's the brother of Yahukanon. These are the sons of thunder. So Yakub, the older brother, was killed with a sword. Tradition has it that Harold himself struck him through with a sword. Funny here, John and James, John Yahukanon and James or Yakub, and Peter or Kepha are always together. But so where is John when his brother gets killed? So I'm saying perhaps John died. Maybe he was dead already. How bold and courageous do you think Yakub was being out here for Harold to get his hands on him and run him through with a sword? They must have been bold and courageous and just proclaiming Yahusha, the sword of Yahusha, like a madman. He was easily found. Yeah, there's that troublemaker. Watch out for that one. He's crazy. Yeah, they must have been able to get to him pretty easy. But my question is, where's his brother? See what I'm saying? Where is his brother? Perhaps already dead? And seeing that it was pleasing to the Yehudim, he proceeded further to arrest Kepha as well, and they were with the Yamam. This was the Yamam of unleavened bread. Bam. Okay, so now we see Yakub, the sons of thunder, and Peter and Yahukanon, his brother. They were always together. They were those three that was always together. Now, Yahukanon was known, Kepha later on was known to hang out with other people, but this was before their death. These three were the main insiders, right? So here we're finding out that Yakub, the brother, and Kepha must have been there because he proceeded further to arrest Peter. So he kills Yakub, son of thunder, arrests Peter, throws him in prison. Where is Yahukanon? Where is he? They would have grabbed him along with Peter and threw him in prison or killed him too, along with his brother. But there's no mention of him, which is really weird because everywhere else you come across these two or three guys, they're always together and they're always mentioned together, just like you just see right here. Even at his death, he's mentioned as the brother of Yahukanon. Yakub, the brother of Yahukanon. But where is he? He wasn't killed and he wasn't arrested. He must not have been there. Why? He must have died. Somehow, some way. I wonder if there's any type of record in the outside writings or anywhere that can prove that. I don't know. It just seems very peculiar to me that he's not here with Peter and Yakub. like he always is. And all 4 other times that they're mentioned in Scripture, they're always together. Very weird, right? Okay, so let's look at 7 here and then. Look at 12:7. And see, a messenger of Yahuwah stood by, and a light shone in the building. And poking the side of Kepha, he raised him up, saying, "Get up quickly," and his chains fell off his hands. See this messenger of Yahuwah? This is Yahusha. Okay, this is his body of light. This is Yahuwah in his body, in his esteem. Okay, and sometimes when you read a messenger of Yahuwah, it can be speaking of a different spiritual being. It could be an angel, Malachim. Okay, but in this case, and a lot of other cases, when you read a messenger of Yahuwah, it's talking about Yahusha. It's talking about him and his spiritual body, the firstborn of all creation, the Word. Okay, and we can prove that by reading further. So just going down to 12:12, it says, "And having realized this, he went to the house of Miriam, the mother of Yahukanon, who was also called Mark, where many had gathered to pray." So this was another Yahukanon, but we can disqualify this one to be in the author, although I believe this is the Mark that wrote the book of Mark. I really do. But he was not one of the 12, okay? He's not mentioned in one of the 12 at all. But he goes by Mark and not Yahukanon. Why? Probably because Yahukanon was such a common name, he wanted to set himself apart and just go by Mark, because there was too many Yahukanons. So this Yahukanon here, I think we can just eliminate as any possibility of being the author, along with Yahukanon the Immerser, because he was beheaded and he was gone. He wasn't around to be writing this stuff either. Okay, so now let's look at 12:17. "And motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he told them how the master brought him out of the prison, and he said, 'Report this to Yaqub,'" which this Yaqub would have been Yahusha's half-brother, who was head of the assembly in Jerusalem, "and to the brothers." And he left and went to another place. Okay, so this was not Yaqub, the son of thunder. This was Yaqub, the half-brother of Yahusha. And here in 17, Peter testifies who the messenger of Yahuwah was that led him out of prison. When we read that back here in 12:7, where it says, "And see, a messenger of Yahuwah stood by, and a light shone in the building," and he get him out of there. And here in 17, Peter exposes or reveals who the messenger of Yahuwah was that rescued him from prison. "And motioning to them with his hand to be silent, he told them how the master brought him out of the prison." So he recognized the messenger of Yahuwah as being Yahusha HaMashiach, or Yahuwah incarnate. In this case, Yahuwah in his body of light, firstborn of all creation. And Peter recognized that as him being the master, not just an ordinary Malachim. See that? 12:17 clearly says so. All right. Okay, so I think we're getting really close to the end here. I just want to show you 2 more things here that relates. Okay, so I think we can safely, I'm convinced that the author of John, the book of John, is not Yahukanon, the son of Zebediah, or son of thunder, or the brother of Yaqub. It's Eleazar, the pupil whom Yahushua loved. And I believe you can go ahead and extend that on out to the others, writings of John, contribute to Yahukanon. And all we have to do is look at 1 John. It says, what was from the beginning? 1 John 1 through 3. What was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our eyes, what we have looked upon, and our hands have handled concerning the word of life. And the life was manifested, and we have seen and bear witness and announce to you that everlasting life, which was with the Father and was manifested to us. We announce to you what we have seen and heard, so that you too might have fellowship with us. And truly, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. And we write this to you in order that your joy might be complete. And this is the message which we have heard from him and announced to you, that Yahuwah is light, and in him is no darkness at all. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and are not doing the truth. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Yahushua Mashiach, his son, cleanses us from all sin. Okay, so as you can see, this is exactly what John 1 says. He's just seen it in a different way. Okay, he's talking about the light, the life, the manifestation. He's talking about truth, the Father, the Son, light in him, no darkness at all. If you lie, you're not doing the truth. He's talking about truth, the light, the blood of Yahushua. So there it is. This is the same train of thought, and is almost saying the exact thing as John 1 in the beginning. And then John 1 in the beginning. Yeah. And he was the light, and he was life, and he was the light of men, the life of men. It's the same thing. The truth, the way, the truth, and the life. Same thing. It's all right here. Same train of thought, same message, just being said in a different way. This is no doubt the same author of John. If you read that go back to John 1 and then read 1 John 1 back and forth, and you'll see the connection. It has to be the same person writing it. He's saying the same thing, just saying it differently. Same message. So if we look at Yahukanon 2, and we'll see if there's any connection. Yeah, there's a connection. Look at 2 Yahukanon 2. There's only one chapter. Chapter 1, verse 2. But also all those who have known the truth being what? Yahusha, the word of Yahuwah, the word, it's all truth. Okay. Also, those who have known the truth because of the truth which stays in us and shall be with us forever. Powerful stuff. Now, Yahusha's truth, you can look that up in John 14. He talks about the same thing. Love and truth, love and truth, love and truth. That's his entire message through all these letters. Okay. So then 1:4 says, I rejoice greatly because I found some of your children walking in truth, as we received a command from the Father. There it is. Walking in truth, walking in spirit and truth. Quoted in John 4:24. And then back over here to 1 John 2:6. If we say that we have fellowship with him and walk in darkness, we lie and are not doing the truth. Walking in the truth as we received a command from the Father. See the same train of thought? Same author, man. Same message. Look at 5. Okay. It says, and now I ask you, lady, not as though I wrote a new command to you, but that which we have had from the beginning, that we love one another. And this is the love, that we walk according to his commands. This is the command, that as you have heard from the beginning, you should walk in it. Now look at 1 John 1, 7 and 8. 1 John 1, 7 and 8. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another, in the blood of Yahushua. Mashiach, the Son, cleanses us from all sin. Same thing. Okay, so look at on down to 7. I mean, his authorship, his train of thought, his way of writing, his style of writing, his verbiage, his pet peeves, his pet sentences, messages are all over the place. It's the same author, same message. Look at 7. Because many who are leading astray went out into the world, who do not confess Yahushua Mashiach as coming in the flesh. This one is he who is leading astray in the anti-Mashiach. 1 John 4, 3. 1 John 4, 3. And every ruach that does not confess that Yahushua Mashiach has come in the flesh is not of Yahuwah. And this is the ruach of the anti-Mashiach, which you heard is coming and now is already in the world. Isn't that the same message? It is. Because many of you leading astray went out to the world who do not confess Yahushua Mashiach as coming in the flesh. This is he who is leading astray in the anti-Mashiach. That's the same message, man. It's the same author. Now, John, 1 John, 2 John is no doubt the same author, man. You can see 1 John 2:23 message right here in verse 9. 2nd Yahukanon, verse 9. Everyone who is transgressed and not staying in the teaching of Mashiach does not possess Yahuwah. The one who stays in the teaching of Mashiach possesses both the Father and the Son. It's the same teaching in 1 John 2:23. 1 John 2:23 says, no one denying the Son has the Father. The one confessing the Son has the Father as well. Same message. So there's no doubt John 1 and 2 and John are all from the same author. And then, of course, 3rd John, is there anything that leads us to connect? Yeah, there is. It's 3rd Yahukanon, chapter 1. There's only one chapter, and it's in verse 12. Demetrius has a good reputation from all and from the truth itself. And we also bear witness, and you know that our witness is true. That our witness is true. Now look at John 21. John 21, verse 24 says, this is the people who bears witness about these things and wrote these things, and we know that his witness is true. His witness is true. 3rd John 1:12 says, and you know that our witness is true. There you go. It's a huge connection. You can't deny that connection. It's there. Okay, so Revelations is also written by John. We know that. He was put on the Isle of Patmos and wrote Revelations. Yahukanon was hunted down like a dog by the chief priests and their assassins, if you will, their bounty hunters. And they were hunted down. And he was hunted down, and he was finally found. They finally did find him. And he was captured, and he was taken to the island of Patmos and quarantined there and exiled there. It was like I guess there was some really hard mining things, their mines, and people were exiled there. Criminals were exiled there to work in the mines. John was put out there, Lazarus, because rumor has it, or tradition, if you will, that was found in the library of the Roman Caesar's library had letters from Pilate to Caesar and from other writings to Caesar. And one of them was that they had captured Eleazar or Yahukanon, and they attempted to kill him, and they couldn't kill him. And then they attempted to boil him in oil 3 times. They boiled him in oil and couldn't harm him. And so he was exiled to the island of Patmos. And that's why he was there. And that's where Yahusha came and visited him there and revealed revelations to him. And that, although outside of the cover of this canonized list, we can probably accept that, at least have a mutual understanding of it, based on the things that we know and the discernment of the Ruach HaKodesh in us. But anyway, he was giving the revelation of Mashiach, of Yahusha, and who he was, revealed who he was, leaving no doubt that he was the Father, and then gave predictions or prophecies to him to write down concerning the second coming of Yahushua HaMashiach. And that's what Revelations is all about. Okay. So those are not Yahukanon's words. In other words, Eleazar's words, like John 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John are. They are words of Yahusha. He told him what to write. He told him, write what's now, what was, and what's coming. And Yahukanon did so. And sent copies of that book out to all the assemblies in Asia Minor. Okay. So there's no doubt. I think we've got enough evidence here. I think it's clear. The true author of Yahukanon 1, 2, and 3, and Revelations is drum roll, Eleazar, the pupil whom Yahusha loved. There you go. We're concluded into the study this evening. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for studying with me. I appreciate that. And Zoom at noon tomorrow, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the same channel, Sparking Yah. The Nazarene will assemble in obedience to the scriptures of truth, and we will study in the book of 1 John. We'll be finishing up chapters 4 and 5. And peace, joy, and love to everybody. I hope everybody got as much out of this study this evening as I did. It was very powerful stuff, man. If you have never been on Zoom at noon, please come and join us. We have 10 slots available for the live stream. And if they're taken up, we have the chat room where you can just observe. You can be a incognito and just listen. And if that's all you want to do. But please come. It's important to Yahusha that you're there. It's important to the Nazarene that you're there. We're all one body with different components making up one body. And if you're not there, we miss you tremendously. Believe me, we notice you're not there. All right. That's how important you are to Yahusha and to the body. So be there or be square. And remember to stay in love with Yahusha HaMashiach. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuwah. See y'all next week.